Tonight's guest is Calgary City Counselor Druh Farrell. For many climate-conscious Calgarians like myself, Councillor Farrell has been a stalwart champion and bright light on City Council in a city I love, but that all too often seems to want to sweep environmental concerns under the rug. On behalf of the Hub, I'll just say how grateful we are for the work she does at City Hall and how lucky we are to have her on our show tonight. Druh Farrell, welcome to A Climate of Change.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. I guess the first question given that you're an elected official and we're in a time of pandemic, I feel like if there's anything you'd like to communicate to our audience right now in regards to the COVID virus, I'll give you the floor. I'll just say that we're a climate group, so therefore we're friendly to science, and so we're a smart crew. So whatever you'd like to pass on to us, we're happy to share.
Oh, I'm happy to speak about a couple of things. Calgary has a history of responding to crises. Certainly with the 2013 flood, we learned a tremendous amount on how to be nimble. We also learned how important community and kindness and taking care of each other was from the 2013 flood. So we've been able to take what we've learned at that time and really build on it with COVID-19. COVID-19, of course, none of us have been through anything quite like this, but we're learning a tremendous amount, and I feel that the city is in good hands. The province, the federal government, and the city are working really well together, and we have an opportunity to build back better. So be kind to each other, be patient with each other. This is going to be not overnight. We're not going to get over this right away. It'll be a long-term thing, and so we need to be kind, and that's my message.
I like it. I agree entirely. So for me, when I talk about teachable moments during this time, a good example for me is that I was always told that on the climate front, there's a number of things that are just not affordable. There's no way we could ever do it. And then all of a sudden it turns out if we really believe in a crisis, we can find money for that. And so that's a teachable moment for me that I feel like once that's out there, it's kind of tough to put that back in the box. What teachable moment, what would be your favorite or prime teachable moment from this time?
I'm a native Calgarian. I've been through booms and busts. They are bruising for cities. Not everyone thrives during a boom. Lots of people suffer during the bust. We have an opportunity through COVID in this major shock to our system to build back better, to build with a more equitable economy where we look at well-being over GDP.
What better time to talk about our sponsor, Skyfire Energy, who has been designing and installing solar PV systems for homeowners, business owners, utilities, municipalities, and First Nations since 2001. They are an employee-owned, certified B Corporation with offices in Calgary, Edmonton, Penticton, and Regina. Their staff is one of the most experienced and qualified teams in the industry, having completed many of the largest and most complex solar projects in Western Canada. Their vision is to bring the magic of solar power to the world for a stronger, healthier, and more sustainable global community. I think we got a basic idea. You know, there's an opportunity right now, and actually, I want to talk to you about that opportunity. What kind of, I guess, what kind of low carbon transitions do you really like for this city? Like, let's say the rebuild comes and we decide that it's going to be a low carbon transition, and maybe that's the caveat for us to get federal funding at all, is it's got to be that. And if that were, what are some of the initiatives or projects or industries or technologies that you would like to see get put through during this time?
Well, I think Alberta itself has tremendous potential. We got a huge number of skilled people here who worked in the oil and gas industry. I know my husband was in oil and gas as a geological technician, and he meets with a lot of his buddies once a week who are engineers and geologists and geophysicists, and they're excited about a just transition. Their children want to participate in a greener future. and they're not going into oil and gas. So, but they want their kids to stay here. So I think it goes beyond Calgary. As far as Calgary is concerned, there's so much more that we can do. We've got a really good climate strategy. We've been ignoring it. So the first thing we should be doing is following our own strategy. We are talking about the Green Line in a couple of weeks. It's a major transit program that would be renewable energy driven. That's really important as we change how we travel. We've got a brain trust here where we could be real leaders in renewable energy, just like Texas, who also relies on oil and gas. So let's not lose that opportunity. Just to assume that we can continue the same way and go through these booms and busts when the rest of the world is changing is foolhardy. And we have lost a lot of time, but we can do a little bit of catch up by just changing our attitude a little bit and recognizing the world is going to be different.
Yeah, so one of the questions that's important to our attendees and our viewers and our members is, how can climate conscious Calgarians and groups like the Hub influence the city so that, especially during this time for this upcoming transition, to make sure that it's the sort of transition that we know that we need, as opposed to something that just sort of reinforces things that need fixing anyways?
I think the best thing that people can do is talk about it. Talk about it to your family, your friends, your neighbors. Climate was a difficult conversation a number of years ago, but it's becoming more normalized because it's hard to ignore. Calgary and Alberta suffers from a lot of climate impacts, and the flood was one of them. But I am hearing more and more from youth, and they've got very powerful voices. It's hard to ignore them when they're saying they want a bright future with a healthy planet. And so all the decisions that I make are based with them in mind, but to give them some ability to use their voice is exceptionally important. It's very interesting what we've learned from COVID is that even though a lot of the world has shut down, domestic flights, international flights, people weren't driving as much, it still didn't impact the emissions that much. It was about 7 or 8%. So it shows that governments need to play the most important role by changing policy, by giving incentives for this just transition, helping people who are in oil and gas transition to other fields. And to clean up our orphan wells. But I think if we go back to pre-COVID normal, we'll have missed a tremendous opportunity, and it would be extremely foolhardy.
What do you feel like we might have hit, one of the prime teachable moments after 5 or 6 years of watching our basically oil-only economy get hit by global structural things, and then following all of that, there's the biggest money movers in the world are starting to back away from oil and gas and all of this. And then we hit the coronavirus, and then we all learn the term negative oil, and there's a growing global stockpile. And what does it mean for, do you feel like maybe Calgary generally might be learning from all of that?
Well, it's a difficult lesson because we got so much invested in one thing. And, but we do have a diverse economy, interestingly. It's only about 3%. I know that there's offshoot benefits from a prosperous oil and gas system, but we're so heavily reliant on it with our province because we don't have a sales tax. So we're reliant on those royalties. But we see with the boom and bust is that, we spend when it's booming and we cut when it's busting, and it's really hard to build a society when you're going through these mad cycles. And we're seeing that financial institutions, the largest funds in the world, it reminds me of a lesson that my mother taught me when I was a kid. I came home from school and I was angry with a number of my friends, and I was telling her about it. And she said, "Oh, you're upset with friend A and B and C. Have you ever thought maybe it's you?" And that was an aha moment for me. I think Alberta has to stop blaming the rest of the world for its troubles, start looking internally, and fixing them based on a changing world and a changing society.
Do you think that this COVID era, I've been calling it the COVID era. I don't know what else to, or a pause or a reset or whatever. But do you think this COVID era may be the thing that triggers a global low carbon transition, a shift to what we need? Like, might this be the thing? Is this the time?
I think we have a potential to go two ways. Mm-hmm. We have the potential to emerge from this with a more equitable future. We're talking about basic income, universal basic income. We're talking about well-being as a measurement of success for a country. I think we could go in that direction, or we could go even more to this, what's happening in the US, where we have unfettered capitalism at the expense of the worker, expense of the people who are really keeping the economy going. I think it go either way, but it's up to us to try and push for that brighter future, that more equitable future, that greener future, because that's really how we're going to survive. And don't we learn from crises like this that we're stronger together? This sort of rugged individualism doesn't really work when you're dealing with a global pandemic.
Agreed. Can I ask you a question or two about the coronavirus?
Yeah.
So it looks like Calgary's trajectory on the curve is dramatically different from the rest of Alberta. Mm-hmm. Edmonton, it seems to be more of a flattened line in the other cities, and we seem to have had that curve upwards. And I feel I've talked to some folks who say that it's because we have an international airport, and I guess I just want to get a sense of what you think some of the reasons are that we have seem to have more of an incline to our path.
I think some of it does have to do with the airport. We are a hub, and the timing of COVID was right after the spring break, so people were coming home and perhaps bringing it. I do think we can't ignore that it was the meat processing plants that have really created the big problem in not just in Calgary, but also a lot of people who worked at the processing plants. Their spouses worked in long-term care. And so we saw a cross-pollination of this virus from the people who were infected at their workplace and brought it into long-term care. So we have to relook at who's essential in our society. We talk about essential workers and we bang our pots at 7:00 every evening. It has to go beyond that. We have to recognize that a lot of these essential workers who are keeping us fed, the shelves stocked in the grocery store, these are minimum wage workers. And we need to treat them with equity and dignity when we emerge from this and fight for them.
Yeah, glad you mentioned the healthcare workers, and I agree we have to do more than bang pots and pans out the window. That said, we do go live at 7:05 because at 7:00 I'm committed to clanging a big cowbell out my window and encouraging my neighbors to do the same. I think there's a lot to be said for the people in the grocery stores. I keep trying to figure out how I can be a better customer to them and communicate to them how much I value what they're doing, and that it's so important. But I mean, it's like you want to get in and get out of there, and they don't even really want to talk to you anymore. It's a challenge.
It's certainly a challenge for them, I would imagine. Mm-hmm. More than any, there's a lot of tension and anxiety, and people take it out on them. So whatever we can do to make their lives easier right now and after.
Yeah, I think it's a time, that's another one of those teachable moments, I think, is we're able to see what's important, and we realize that a lot of the important jobs don't get paid very well.
Isn't that the truth? And we have, hopefully as a society, reassessed who's essential. And they certainly are essential.
Agreed. I've got one more question for you, and then we'll go to the panelists. I've been seeing a phrase. I don't know if it's widespread yet, but it's the best description to me. I don't know if you've heard of something called the hammer and the dance in reference to the coronavirus.
Yep.
Okay, so just for our audience, the hammer is what hammers down the coronavirus, which is isolation, quarantining, etc. And then the dance is when you open up segments of society, you assess, you see how that's going, and so that enables you. And if you're finding that there are numbers are going up of corona cases, you withdraw that segment, and that's the dance. So my question to you, Councillor Farrell, is: Does the city of Calgary know how to dance?
I think we've got some pretty remarkable people who are working in our emergency response team, and not all of the decisions are the city's decisions.
Right.
We really have to take direction from the province, and my opinion, based on everything I've read, and believe me, I'm no expert, is we'll be dealing with this hammer and dance for a while.
Yeah.
And we need to find a way to adjust. So it may be a series of kind of rolling restrictions, but that's going to be very hard on people. And it's probably harder to put that genie back in the bottle and say, okay, now it's time to self-isolate. But we have to, as a society. It won't work if we don't work together. And it's something that we might be dealing with for some time. I mean, the cool thing about the city is we were one of the first cities to open up our streets for pedestrians and cyclists. And we're one of the first cities in Canada to identify patio space for physical distancing for restaurants that we can spill out onto the street now because they're not as busy. So there are ways to adapt, but it's going to be tough, and not everyone will experience it in the same way. So we have to take care of people who are more vulnerable. And isn't that what we've learned through this, is not everyone is experiencing this crisis in the same way. There are very vulnerable people that are more impacted. And hopefully, if we learn anything, it's that we cannot have people living in homeless shelters any longer. I think there are lots of lessons here.
Yeah, agreed. Do we have Steve Harding lined up for us for our next speaker? I don't. So we're going to bring in a guest panelist for you here, Drew. And I can tell you, Steve Harding is one of our great Climate Hub members. He's been a great help with me getting the Calgary climate conversations off the ground. And so, Steve, take it away.
Hi, thank you. I know from personal experience that trying to install solar panels can necessitate moving or removing roof vents and even upgrading my electrical panel blocks. Installing an electric car plug can involve upgrading the panel box, and running the wire to the outlet location can be very labor intensive and very expensive. If provision were made during construction, it would be much easier and much cheaper. My question to you, Drew, is there a way that the city can influence or require builders to ensure all new construction is solar panel ready and electric car ready?
The city is not in charge of the building code. So there are certain things that we can require and certain things that we can't. We can certainly encourage it. And as we approve developments, certainly approve new communities, we can make that part of the standard. So we have limited capacity to require, but we can certainly make it easier. And I think that's an excellent question. I've just written myself a note to bring that up when I meet with the city staff. Thank you.
All right, we do offer the opportunity for a follow-up question, Steve, unless you feel like you got it taken care of.
No, she took care of it nicely. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very much, Steve. I got a question here, Councillor Farrell, from Dr. Joe Vipond, specifically asking about the 4 new builds, the arena, the field house, Arts Commons, BMO expansion, and the possibility of net zero. Does this Corona moment put something in favor of trying to make those net zero builds?
So the city has a policy that all new city owned, city built buildings have to follow the LEED Gold standard. But I do know that CMLC, who's in charge of the arena and Arts Commons and the BMO Center, are very excited about bringing in some green technology. As well, they can hook up to the district energy plant that we have in East Village. So I did talk to the head of CMLC, Kate Thompson, about that question, and they were really excited. I'm not sure about net zero. They haven't gotten back to me, but they're certainly wanting to make them green buildings. So it's an excellent question. Thank you.
Great. And actually following up on that, we have a question from Molly saying Vancouver's trying to lead the world in green building design and construction, and how can we start supporting this here in Calgary? Well,
Vancouver is so far ahead of us.
Yeah.
When it comes to green buildings. And a lot of our GHG comes from buildings. And considering that a lot of buildings are new and have been renovated over the last 10 years, we've missed a tremendous opportunity. A lot of the control has to come from the province, unfortunately, but we could do way more in providing incentives for green buildings. It's just something that our city administration has been so reluctant to ask for. You know, interestingly, and I've been posting a lot about this on Twitter, I let a city administration know that I'm going to be meeting with every department head about how they hope to meet our objectives in our climate strategy. And just by talking about those meetings, it's changed the whole dynamic at the city. It's interesting what a small thing can do, and it's probably a lesson for everyone, what a small thing can do to really make a big difference. But now departments are talking with each other and how they can do better. They're looking to explore and doing better. So certainly green buildings, we suck. We could, we have nowhere to go but up, frankly.
Right. Okay, I think we have Rose on deck, and Councillor Farrell, you may be familiar with Rose Jackson. She's one of the leaders of the Fridays for Future movement, the climate youth that are camped out usually on Fridays to protest for climate action. Here is Rose.
Hi, Rose.
Hi. Just want to check, everyone can hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect. I do have a question related to a previous answer that you had. Why are city buildings just LEED Gold certified instead of LEED Platinum certified?
You probably don't remember Alderman Bob Hawksworth, but Bob, I sat on council with him for a number of years. He was a big advocate of climate action and green building technology. So he brought forward that motion to go to LEED Gold for city buildings. But it's interesting, Calgary had kind of a golden period of climate action. We built the LRT with Ride the Wind. We had one of a leading climate strategy. Dave Brown-Kanye, the mayor of the day, won a national award for it. And then somehow climate conversation just fell off the map. It was really difficult to bring it up and have a normal conversation on climate action. So we lost a lot of ground. We were considered leaders in Canada. It was interesting. But I think we could do better. So it maybe needs another motion saying LEED Platinum. But we need to go beyond how we develop new communities is probably one of the biggest impacts of GHG emissions in our city, how people travel from these new communities to where they want to go. We have so much influence in building green communities, and we haven't seized that opportunity. We could do much better. Mm-hmm. And Rose, I just have to say, I appreciate the work that you do, and it was a delight to meet with you when you came into my office. And I've been talking a lot about the impact of that meeting and how we can bring youth into the conversation a bit more.
Yeah.
So hopefully you'll hear some more from us soon.
Yeah, and I was actually gonna, my actual question now is, how would you like to see increased city engagement with youth, and like how would you want that to kind of proceed, kind of like relating back to our meeting?
Well, I was planning on, and I had developed a team at the city and from people within the city and without, to have a youth summit in the fall. So we were going to have a youth summit in October. We won't be doing that now. We're talking about how to engage youth virtually. But you know, when you think about the technology right now, and even the difficulty me getting on this Zoom call, we're dealing with technology that is your natural, it's your natural scene. And so we've been talking a lot with all departments in the city, how we can use this opportunity with COVID, crisis with COVID, and use it as an opportunity to engage youth and through technology. So the Green Line, for example, is coming up on June 1st, and we want to hear from youth who will be using the Green Line. And so I think it's top of mind for a lot of senior city staff, and it's certainly top of mind with our city manager, because we know we're losing youth in Calgary. They don't feel that they have a place here and they're leaving, and we need to keep youth here. Otherwise we don't have a future. So stay tuned. We're working on something, but we have to adjust because of COVID.
Of course. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rose, and thank you for everything that you do. It's incredibly important.
Yeah, thank you.
So Jim McPhail is asking, another stalwart Climate Hub member. He's asking what the chances are to get a slate of candidates next year that have your values and willingness to act on them with council.
Well, certainly try.
Yeah.
We know that elections are probably the most important climate decision that people can make, is to vote, because individual choices have some benefit, small benefit, but it's the big decisions. It's the policy decisions and that make the big difference. So I think that Climate Hub certainly is well known now with City Council. You're hard to ignore. Make it really hard to ignore.
Right.
And youth, it's impossible to ignore, because we know we're losing our youth, and we know that we need to be different in order to have them feel like Calgary's a place for them. So I get involved. The Alliance for the Common Good is another group that has significant influence. But don't wait, start now. And we know that the more you talk about climate, the more normal it is to talk about climate, and the more apt we are to do something about it.
Yeah, no, that it's one of the best things. We have a few questions from folks on Facebook Live asking how they can help the hub, and I'll take the chance to just echo what Councillor Farrell just said, which is, we're able to make impact because we show up, and we show up to meetings at City Council, and we tell them what's important to us. And eventually, when it makes a difference, right, Drew? When you're in City Council and you guys are discussing something, and you have a room full of people that care about climate, right?
Oh, it makes a huge difference, and it makes a huge difference when young people come, because they're talking about the fears and their aspirations for the future, and it's hard to ignore when they're at the podium at council. It doesn't have to always be at council, but there's lots of different ways that people can get involved and just hold our feet to the fire. We need that.
Yep, I agree. let's see, we have another Q&A or two here. I know that Druh has some more work today that she's got to go back and do, that she's working live from home there, but we'll see how many questions we can squeeze in while we have the time. We have a few people asking about the updated Green Line proposal that crosses over the Princess Island wetlands. So there are some people that are sort of grumbling about that in the from the climate corner of folks. Do you have any opinion on that?
I do. I was concerned about the Green Line North leg and through the downtown. The previous plan was pretty flat-footed when it came to traveling through those neighborhoods. I think the administration has done a tremendous amount of work designing, providing the details of what that could look like. And I'm more comfortable now than I have been in a long time that this can be a real asset to the city. We've learned that going underground through the river valley is very difficult. And so we've moved away from that. And if we don't put a bridge over the river, and I think it could be done beautifully. St. Patrick's Island Bridge goes over the island, and the impacts are very light. And if the bridge is well designed, I believe that it can work. It's not ideal to go over Princess Island. It's the jewel in the crown of our park system. It just means that the design of the bridge has to be exemplary. And I'm feeling far more confident than I have in a very long time that the administration get that, and they're working to solve some of those issues. But if you look at the Green Line and the importance of the Green Line to sustainable transportation in our city, and the ability to generate economic activity all along its route, it is one of the most powerful investments that we can make as a city. Evan Woolley, the Councillor Woolley, said something to me. It's like the SkyTrain in Vancouver. It's imperfect. I would have liked to have seen that better, but does it ultimately make Vancouver better? And it does. And most Vancouverites would say that. I believe we'll feel the same way with the Green Line.
Okay, I know that I told you I'd let you out at 10 to 8. I'm going to ask you a quick question here, realpolitik, I guess, maybe. But I feel like here in Calgary with the mayor, there's somebody I can work with. I feel like federally, the prime minister, there's somebody I can work with when it comes to climate. Provincially, I feel like we have an ideological opposition to anything moving forward on climate. Given the moment, and given that federal funding is going to be coming in to rebuild, do you feel like Calgary may have to go around our province to get some of these things done?
Well, I hope that we don't have to. I mean, very few people actually deny now that climate is changing. So it's you're becoming a pariah if you actually say that now. But the reality is Alberta has to adjust, and we can't continue to mourn. I mean, there's a grieving period with the change in economy to away from oil and gas, but we absolutely, if we want to be successful in the future, need to meet the future. And if the federal government has money that they're going to put on the table, I don't think the province will want to leave that money on the table. And if it comes with strings attached, that we need to be responsible, we need to clean up orphan wells, we need to reduce our GHGs and control our methane, then I think the province would be foolhardy to ignore that. So it's money, we need it. And the world, this is an international movement that won't be going backwards.
Agreed. Well, Druh, I know you've had a long, busy day, and you're not even done now. You've got to go back and do some city council stuff. This gives us an idea of the type of work that you guys do, and I want to thank you so much for spending the time with us. I think it's important that people get a chance to engage with you as we have tonight. If we have further questions, I hope we can send them to you via Twitter or something like that, and you may maybe able to respond in that realm. Does that make sense?
I'm big on Twitter.
Yeah, you are. You're wonderful on there. Great. Okay. Well,
Great.
thank you, Druh. You're free to go back and do the good work that you do.
Conversion therapy ban. Thank you.
Wow. There you go. Yeah, that's a whole other ball of wax.
Okay, thanks a lot.
Thanks, Druh. Okay. Well, that's it for this week's A Climate of Change. Next week's guest is Canadian climate change expert and clean technology venture capitalist Tom Rand, author of the book, The Case for Climate Action. We'll provide a link in the chat or on our Facebook Live post. If you want to participate in the Zoom broadcast, be sure to sign up for a Hub membership between now and then. If you like this A Climate of Change Thursday night broadcast, we want you to know it wouldn't be possible without our excellent sponsor, Skyfire Energy. They've paved the way for solar in Western Canada and will certainly be a big part of our future. So thanks again, Skyfire. We really appreciate it. You heard it tonight directly from Druh. City Council is aware of the Calgary Climate Hub. They see us as movers of their opinions and what they try to do. Now, nothing's perfect. We're not where we want to be on that climate plan. We haven't got the emissions down at 20 to their 2020 target levels. We're not even close. But you heard it from Druh. It makes a difference to be a member of a group like this and to be trying to influence. So I would urge you to, if you do not belong to a climate group already, join one. And my strongest recommendation is for you to join the Calgary Climate Hub. We take donations. It all goes into climate work like this. I hope you enjoyed tonight. I want to do a special thanks to my producer, Shay Rogers. We do a live broadcast via the internet, and so subject to all the foibles of Wi-Fi chicanery. I want to thank Joan Lawrence, who does a lot of work in the background, my good friend Paul Russell, who helps me out with my sound, which is this nice little microphone here. And I want to thank all of you for tuning in and asking your questions. We'll take a look at those questions there after the broadcast, and see what we can answer on the Facebook page, and then we'll shoot off what we can to Councillor Farrell as well. So once again, thanks everybody for tuning in. Let's get to work.